morning, Tom. Mr. Tirico.
If we could return to motion resolution, Madam Speaker.
Motions and resolutions.
Hereby request unanimous consent to allow Assembly Member Huber to take up SB 63 for purpose of amendment without reference to file immediately.
Without objection. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 63 by Senator Strickland, an act relating to waste management and making an appropriation therefore.
Was there any objection to adopting the amendment by voice vote? All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 63 by Senator Strickland, an act relating to waste management and making an appropriation therefore.
Ms. Huber, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. ABX 4181 abolishes the California Integrated Waste Management Board and transfers its duties to the Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery created by this bill. The ultimate goal of this bill is to reduce the number of boards and commissions that we currently have operating in California. For just an example, we know that we have the largest state bureaucracy of any state in the Union. In Texas, the second largest, they have 167 different boards, commissions, and agencies. In Florida, for example, has 43. In Pennsylvania, they have 57. In California, we have over 1,000. We are by far the largest state bureaucracy compared to any other state in the Union. And while I know that this board holds a dear place in many members' hearts, it is a step in the right direction. Remember, members, we are not trying to eliminate the duties and the purposes and goals behind the Integrated Waste Management Board. We are trying to consolidate and eliminate some of the boards and commissions so that we can get a streamlined state government. And while I don't think this bill goes far enough into that conversation, it is certainly a beginning. And I want to address one other issue that has come up with the Integrated Waste Management Board in particular, and that is that eliminating this board doesn't save any general fund revenues, part of our budget crisis right now. And that is true. The Integrated Waste Management Board is funded by special funds, but all special funds need to be on the table as we are talking about reforming our government and making sure that we are shrinking the size of the California government so that we are ultimately accountable to the taxpayers and not niggling and dining them regardless of what the program board or commission is. And I think this bill is a step in that direction, and that's why I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Chesbrough.
Members, with all due love and respect for my seatmate, this bill will destroy the structure of California's most successful environmental program, a program that has cut California's waste stream in half, eliminating the need for more landfills at no expense to the taxpayer. Not 1 cent of general fund money will be saved by this proposal. This bill is opposed by every environmental, local government, and solid waste industry group. Members, this is the governor's grandstanding, headline-grabbing non-solution. California is the national leader in recycling. Under the California Integrated Waste Management Board and AB 939, we have achieved a 58% reduction in the waste stream. The recycling movement is a powerful fuel additive that helps propel California's economic engine. The recycling industry accounts for more than 85,000 jobs. It generates $4 billion yearly in salaries and wages and produces $10 billion worth of goods and services annually in California. Governor, let's talk about this board. I know it's popular to gang up on the waste board, but I served on this board for a total of 10 years, appointed by 3 different president pro tems of the state Senate. Why did 3 different legislative leaders appoint me? Was it because I was a former legislator? No. When Senate President David Roberti appointed me as a Humboldt County supervisor to the board in 1990, it was because I had 20 years of experience in waste management and recycling in both the private sector and in government. I founded one of California's first recycling centers and represented city and county governments on waste issues for over a decade. Other recycling pioneers have served on this board, including Gary Peterson and Paul Rellis. Current board member Rosalie Muley has worked to develop and manage recycling programs in the private waste hauling industry for decades. Other board members have included private sector waste industry leaders such as Sam Agigian and Steve Jones. So why have you not heard of these board members? Because they are dedicated and talented professionals who did a fantastic job for the people of California, but don't fit neatly into the carefully orchestrated attack on the board, culminating in this proposal that we have in front of us, I guess this morning. I was going to say this evening. In addition to reducing the waste stream by 58%, the board has dramatically reduced California's huge and dangerous illegal tire piles and instead made sure that tens of millions of tires have been recycled in this state. Illegal dumping of motor oil into our streams has been drastically reduced as a result of the board's management of the used oil recycling program. Several years ago, the legislature and the governor showed their confidence in the board by giving it authority over California's groundbreaking and highly successful computer recycling programs. Members, contrary to newspaper headlines and editorials, this is one of California's great environmental success stories. Why would we want to destroy a good thing? I have worked to reduce California's waste stream for over 40 years, both inside government and in the private sector. And this year I've introduced 3 bills to give the board even more important work to do to move California even further forward in leading the nation and the world in reducing the waste that we produce as Californians. I strongly urge a no vote on this destructive grandstanding measure.
Ms. Skinner? Ms. Skinner?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, many of us remember when California was looked to as a leader in the issue of integrated waste management. Not only were we looked to as a leader, but the passage of AB 939 and many of the other policies where California codified the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycling, that set the standard for the country. AB 939, which created the Integrated Waste Management Board, was the first law in a state to set a 50% recycling goal. California's well-earned reputation as the beacon of policy that set the gold standard for the environment, whether it was on clean air, energy efficiency, now climate change, and then waste. This is where we got that reputation, from measures like that. And that board, the California Integrated Waste Management Board, oversaw the implementation of that groundbreaking measure, the very first measure by a state in the U.S. to set 50% waste reduction. This is not a budgetary act. If this had not been shoehorned into the budget negotiations, it would have been heard by our committees, and it would have been able to be debated by the public, by the stakeholders, and we would have heard from industry, local governments, consumers, people across the state who see the value of the board and the contribution that it has made to our state, to job creation, to waste diversion, and to public health. I urge your no vote on this measure. It does not save one dime of general fund, and it does not help our deficit or our cash flow crisis.
Mr. Gaines?
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of SB 63. And I don't challenge the merits of the Integrated Waste Management Board, but this is a lightning rod organization that has really created a lot of consternation among voters and our citizens in the state of California. And simply what this is doing is taking these duties and putting it into the Department of Conservation. The program will not be eliminated, but when we appoint individuals at $130,000 a year to serve for monthly meetings, it just smacks of the kind of the wrong things that government is doing. And I'm not saying that there's not merit to what they do in terms of their duties, but to attend a monthly meeting and receive a salary of $130,000 is just a big problem. And so I rise in support of this and would hope that we could get bipartisan support on this issue, because it's not eliminating the organization. Thank you.
Ms. Huber, you may close.
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that the board has done some great work, and that's why I think it's important to recognize that this bill transfers all civil service employees from the Integrated Waste Management Board to the new Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery. This is about reorganization, not about eliminating California's priorities, but how do we streamline and take all these separate little boards and commissions that we have, create departments, and really try to make sure that we're not doubling up on efforts. It also maintains the regulations that have been adopted by the California Integrated Waste Management Board before January 1 of 2010. So this is not an effort to roll back any of the successes of this program. It's merely an attempt to streamline some of our bureaucracy, and while I recognize it doesn't save general fund dollars, it is still a necessary reform that we need to be doing more of in California, and that's why I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Clerk, you may open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk can close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 47, noes 18. Measure pass. Members, we'll move to SB 90 without reference to file. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 90 by the Senate Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review, an act relating to the Budget Act of 2009.
Ms. Evans, you may open.
This is a supplemental appropriations bill to fund deficiencies in the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation budget for the fiscal years 2007-08 and 2008-09. The bill funds costs that the state has already incurred and has a responsibility to pay. I ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 No. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Members, this is a 2/3 vote bill for urgency. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Mr. Tirico moves a call. And I want to notice immediate transmittal to the Senate on SB 63. Without objection, SB 63 will be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Members, we're going to lift the call on SB 90. Clerk will post. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 55, noes 19. Measure passes. Immediate transmittal to the Senate.
Members, to continue work tonight, we need to recess our regular session and go back to fourth extraordinary. Regular session is in recess. We are now in fourth extraordinary session. Ms. Evans is prepared to take up AB 19. AB 19 for concurrence without reference to file. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 19 by Assemblymember Evans, an act relating to in-home supportive services.
You may open, Ms. Evans.
Members, AB 19 is a trailer bill on reforms for in-home supportive services. It requires that all providers go through a criminal background check, including fingerprinting. It also requires recipients of IHSS services to submit fingerprints to the county. It requires county social workers to conduct unannounced visits. It establishes a civil penalty for timesheet fraud and requires providers to sign an acknowledgement of eligible recipient services. It requires in-person verification of provider employment documents by a county worker. It provides $10 million for local anti-fraud investigations, and I'd ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Ms. Evans moves a call. Members, we have a bill in regular session. We're recessing fourth extraordinary. We're back in regular session in order to take up file item 29, SB 16. Before we do that, Mr. Torrico.
Madam Speaker, on the same bill, hereby request unanimous consent to allow for reconsideration of file item 29, SB 116.
Without objection, reconsideration is granted. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 116 by Senator Calderon, an act relating to public finance and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Nava, you may open.
Madam Speaker and members, this is Senate Bill 116. It's an urgency measure sponsored by State Controller John Chung. It's cleanup legislation to a bill enacted 2 years ago. Will allow the state to sell variable rate revenue anticipation warrants in the current credit environment. Without the changes in this bill, California may be unable to sell RAWs in the current credit situation. And even if a RAW sale were possible, it is likely we would be unable to borrow as much as we needed. This bill contains authority that we hope we don't have to use, but which we want to have in case we need it. There is no opposition. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 One member vote who desires to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, no 16 on the urgency. Ayes 54, no 16 on the measure. Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Mr. Blakesley?
Republican caucus.
Republican caucus members.